First appearing in Adventures of Superman number 466, Cyborg Superman has made a big impression on the DC universe and with that, myself. In this video, I want to explain why I love Cyborg Superman and why he's my second favorite Superman villain. DC Comics took the origin of Reed Richards from Marvel Comics and said, what if we did something wacky with him? What if we used the idea of the Fantastic Four, but in their exposure to cosmic radiation, they're transformed? Yes, but they're dying slowly. They're running out of time. Hank has to save his team from death. They head to LexCorp to use the radiation lab, but security prevents them from entering. Superman hears about the break-in and goes in to stop them with the thought in mind that they might have a grudge against Luthor. As Superman comes, he is attacked by the Human Torch equivalent on the team. Hank and Terry reason with Clark and he hears them out. Superman does very little in terms of being useful here. He tells Hank he's not a scientist and he should go to Star Labs. Slowly through the rest of the issue, one by one, each member dies. The most gruesome is Hank Henshaw's death, where he essentially melts to the bone. And the second most gruesome is the Thing character equivalent, essentially committing suicide. A similar fate for the Human Torch character who flies into the sun. Very dark. The only one who survived the story is Terry Henshaw. Before Hank died, he was able to build the machine to get rid of their radiation, which was only able to cure Terry. What wasn't known is the reason for the solar rays hitting Project Excalibur was because of Superman. In issues prior, Superman had thrown Eradicator into the sun, which caused the solar flares. Later on, Terry's in therapy with doctors trying to help her. She's dealing with the death of her fellow astronauts. Meanwhile, at LexCorp, scientists experience something strange. Scraps of metal begin to move around the lab, assembling into a robotic form. It's Hank Henshaw.
Terry, I've come back to you. I have not died. I merely transferred my soul into the computers and existed there until I could formulate a method enabling me to remake myself. Quite simple, really, if you consider the magnitude of what I've done. Terry, it's me. I'm your husband, Hank. I realize my appearance must be difficult to accept, but I assure you I am in fact your husband, Hank. In the same way that Jim Garrison was able to fashion a body out of shuttle debris and earth, so I have fashioned one out of machinery.
How is this possible? In Hank Henshaw's death, he gained the ability to possess metal, essentially becoming a cyborg ghost. I adore this element. You don't get many villains like this where a character dies and possesses objects in DC Comics. Besides Deadman, he possesses bodies of the living. Hank possesses inanimate metal. After creating his new robot form, he goes to visit his wife, who doesn't believe Hank is alive and has to convince her that he is Hank. Soon people come into the room and he leaves, as Terry goes into a trauma-induced coma. After this happens, Superman tells Hank what happened to Terry. Hank decides he doesn't want to be on Earth anymore until Terry is well. Hank decides to use a LexCorp satellite pod to shoot himself into the cosmos. He's gone, for now.
When I discovered this technological marvel in NASA's computers, I knew I could at last travel the universe. I am destined to be alone, to absorb the vast knowledge of the universe alone. My very existence is a lonely one. Before Terry, Earth only offered me science, and now I have absorbed all knowledge of Earth's science and brought pain to the only living thing I have ever cared for. If there was anyone who could figure out a way to do what you say, it would be me. No, there is no going back. Like you, I am now beyond mortal men, and a few precious components from your Kryptonian ship will give me the propulsion I need to leave Earth forever. What I've been given is the opportunity of a lifetime, and I shall not ignore it.
After this, Hank wouldn't appear for a couple years. He wasn't in a comic again till Superman 500, where he would return as Cyborg Superman. You may be wondering, why did he return? Did Terry get well? Well, no. She committed suicide after the coma. In the time Hank was in the cosmos, Superman was killed by Doomsday in the death of Superman. Hank found out about Eradicator being thrown into the sun by Superman, now hating Superman. He essentially thinks, if I can't kill him, then I'll destroy his legacy. He made himself appear as Superman. He was one of 4 imposter Supermen in the story, among those of Steel, Superboy, Eradicator. This was his opportunity to execute his plans with the help of Mongol. Mongol is one of Superman's most formidable foes, just as strong as Superman and being the ruler of Warworld. Why does he work with Hank, you ask? Well, that's because he's his servant. His servant, you're wondering? While in space, Hank scared the hell out of Mongol, possessing Warworld, creating a new body for himself. Mongol defied Hank's wishes for the first time. Hank tortured Mongol afterward. Hank made him a promise that he would get a new world to use as a weapon if he joined him. He made Mongol bow before himself, using fear, turning one of Superman's greatest foes into a goon. When by himself, he's a powerhouse, but combined with Hank's power, that's dangerous. The plan was to convince the world Hank was Superman. He got very far. He had Superman's genetic code, convincing everyone he was Superman, even getting approval from Bill Clinton shaking hands with him. He was the official Superman the government stood behind. It seems reasonable that Superman was brutalized by Doomsday, then he comes back as a cyborg. It makes sense. In comparison to Eradicator, who was the second behind in credibility, but with Eradicator, he didn't show signs of damage, which in turn, damaged his legitimacy. Hank accomplished his goal. Next step of his plan was to destroy Coast City, the home of Hal Jordan Green Lantern. It would be the first of many to be destroyed. He would destroy his home planet, for he no longer cares for it without Terry Henshaw. That was the plan, and Hank succeeded in destroying Coast City. But then, he came back. Donning an all-black costume with silver bracelets, silver logo, and a luscious mullet. He was unable to fly, so he was given Steel's rocket boots. He had a hard time convincing Lois he was the real Superman, but he was able to convince her with a kiss. After this, Superman went to war. He had a job to do. Take out the imposter. In Coast City, Hank awaits with Mongol as Steel, Superboy, Superman march to Coast City to battle. Hank is ready to take them on, until a wrench is thrown into the mix. Hal Jordan returns to Earth not knowing what happened to his home. Let's say he didn't take kindly to it. He finds his home obliterated and goes after those responsible, teaming up with Superman and the others. Superman takes on Cyborg Superman as Hal Jordan and Steel take on Mongol. In the end, they win. But this isn't the end of the story. Hal Jordan would have a mental breakdown with the loss of his city. He does something brash. He goes to Oa and kills the Green Lantern Corps, creating the villain Parallax, one of DC's greatest heroes turned into one of DC's most powerful villains. All because of Hank Henshaw's actions. Later, after becoming Parallax, Hal would find Hank at the Source Wall, where he would kill Hank Henshaw. Or so he thought, at least. Years later, Hank was brought back by the Manhunters. They were able to resurrect his ghost consciousness. He didn't want this. He wants to die. He has nothing to live for. The Sinestro Corps, just being established, recruits Hank Henshaw as an ambassador for the Sinestro Corps. He teams up with the Corps so he can finally die. One of the beings a part of the Sinestro Corps was the Antimon, the being that destroyed the multiverse in Crisis on Infinite Earths. He knew the power of the Antimonitor and desired to be killed through the Antimonitor. So with that information, he teamed up with them so he could finally die.
Over the years, I have been detonated, burned, and disintegrated, yet I continue to survive. The cosmic accident that cursed me with immortality murdered my friends and drove my wife mad. She was able to end her own life. I am not Anti-Monitor.
When you have done what we have asked of you, I will not fail where Superman and Green Lantern have. I will kill you, Hank Henshaw.
Thank you.
So the arc of Hank Henshaw goes like this. A man that tried to save his family, to a being who was resurrected by his cosmic powers and given a chance for revenge. He got what he desired but failed in the end, being killed by Parallax. Then was resurrected again, but this time against his will. He didn't want to come back. He was forced to by the Manhunters, and found a way to finally perish again with Anti-Monitor, but not be taken too. Anti-Monitor was killed, and now Hank wanders the cosmos as a ghost, the head of the Manhunters. A sad character arc. His story is one of tragedy to revenge, eternal imprisonment within his own body. He's a very wild case for a DC villain. There isn't any character like him in comics. No character has quite this story. Characters share these aspects, but not in this way. He's similar to characters like The Thing in Depression, similar to Cyborg in Tragedy. Shared intelligence with Reed Richards. He's a very unique case. He's my second favorite Superman villain, only behind Lex Luthor, as well as my third favorite Green Lantern villain behind Sinestro and Atrocitus. That's also a unique fact with him. He's one of the few characters that Superman shares with Green Lantern as an antagonist. The only other character I can think of is Mongol, but the thing with Mongol is he does lean more to being a Superman villain, which is funny because Hank's main alias has Superman in the name. The irony is not lost on me. Which is why I'm not surprised the character isn't used as much as I believe he should be. He's a hard character to adapt. His story isn't the most family-friendly. Topics of suicide and depression in a Superman and Green Lantern story darkens the mood, but he's a great character. What I do hate is when he's reduced to being, look how badass this character looks. Which, I mean, yes, he looks badass. How can you not love Superman mixed with Terminator in design? Like, come on, you can't deny that's cool. Especially later on when he's resurrected by the Manhunters wearing the black and red costume that resembles the colors of his astronaut attire. So I get why people are like, damn, he looked cool, and don't really think about him much further than that. He's a hard character to make a story for if you're making a Superman film. He requires a lot of setup. You have to do the character arc, start with him with the Excalibur mission where he tries to save his family from dying. Then the other extremely hard thing to do with him is his most iconic story requires Superman to die. So for him to appear, you have to do that, which requires a lot of time with Superman stories, which creates a barrier for this character to even attempt to get used. So I understand the lack of adaptations for the character. I do think it's very much worth it if they put the work in. The one and only adaptation of this character is terrible for that reason. They compact a story into one film and cut significant elements of the character. What I'm talking about is...
Hate. Loathe entirely.
We finally get an opening to use Cyborg Superman. We get this watered down generic version of the character just for Darkseid glazing. They cut the Mongol enslavement that established Hank as a formidable presence. They cut Terry's part in the story. You never get that disorientation of not recognizing his new body with her. They cut Coast City being destroyed. They cut Eradicator's part in his story even though he's a part of the film. Essentially, they gutted all the interesting parts of the story. This movie is just a terrible adaptation of the comic. It only shares certain aspects of the story and the name. Another crime of the movie is making Cyborg Superman a whining baby who is a goon for Darkseid. Like, what? Who looks at such a cool character and says, yeah, let's make him a goon for Darkseid with no motivation for helping him, being his slave. He only worked with Anti-Monitor because he knew he would finally kill him. Darkseid isn't going to do that. He's just going to make Hank a slave. Comic Hank wouldn't go anywhere near Darkseid because it doesn't do anything for him. The best I could give you is Darkseid uses his Omega beams to disintegrate him, but even with that, Hank can still live. Antimatter destroys everything it comes in contact with permanently. Hank would choose Anti-Monitor's execution every day of the week. I'm hoping eventually we get a proper adaptation of Cyborg Superman and the Reign of the Supermen. At least there's Lego Batman 3 Cyborg Superman. He doesn't talk, but at least he doesn't whine like a little bitch. So in conclusion, I love this character for a lot of reasons. Creating some of each retrospective's best stories, an example being that he turned Hal Jordan from the iconic Justice League hero to a vengeful ghost like him in a way. Considering both Hal and Cyborg Superman eventually end up dead, but still dwelling amongst the living in different ways, it's an interesting parallel. Hal is the Spectre and Hank as a cyborg possessing metal. Hank is just a character who I believe deserves a lot more love in DC Comics. He's very underutilized, especially on screen, so if I can get to see more stories using him, I love that. I've yet to read his story post-Flashpoint, but I'm getting there. But just his 21 years as a character prior to the New 52, he marks his spot on the DC Villain Hall of Fame list. I would recommend several stories for Hank, but the most essential are Adventures of Superman 466, Adventures of Superman 468, Reign of the Superman, Emerald Twilight, even though he's not in it, but it's essentially to completing the story, Final Night, Sinestro Core War. These are the best stories for Cyborg Superman / Hank Henshaw in my opinion, and show his development from heroic character to a soulless villain. If you enjoyed this video, please leave a like. My next Why I Love video will be on Sinestro, so stay tuned. And that's all I got. See you around.